That day, I happened to be off. I was working my side job. My side job, I did body and fender on the side. So I live in Staten Island. I work, the side job's in Staten Island. And where the shop was located is in the vicinity of the Goethals Bridge. One of the vendors coming in, making a delivery, he's like, yeah, I don't know if you heard, but a plane hit the World Trade Center. So what everybody's thinking that lives in Staten Island, we have Linden Airport. There's a lot of people with, small Cessna type planes. I just assume, that's what happened, So a second delivery comes and the guy's like, man, you can't imagine the plume of smoke, there's a planes crashed into. I said, you said planes? So I got in the car, drove down the end of the road where I could see Manhattan, and I could see, what was going on. I'm like, this isn't no little planes from, Linden Airport. So I called the Division 8, is the administrative division for Staten Island, and asked them if they, what was going on. So this is prior to most people. I don't even think I might have just got a cell phone. You know what I mean? So they said that there was a total recall, and that they were calling all off-duty FDNY members in to report into. So what happens is I had gotten promoted the January before, and they had a program where the new lieutenants go to the fire academy to become instructors because there was a shortage of instructors, or they needed new instructors. So that so our job, we got assigned to the academy. So Monday through Friday, we worked at the academy, but on the weekends, we had the opportunity to work in the field because you're a brand new lieutenant. You just went to school. You kind of want to get out there and, learn your craft. You know what I mean? Whereas being an instructor is a very rewarding position, but it's not something that, you know what I mean? As you going to school to become a lieutenant, you want to be out there, at fires and stuff. So I happen to have my gear with me in my car because we have the opportunity to work on the weekend. So we went down to Rescue 5 is down here in Staten Island. That's also houses Division 8. And they had an area where they had everybody sign into a logbook, and they had buses that were transporting members from Division 8 Rescue 5 to the Staten Island Ferry to bring you over. So, we loaded up in the buses, and they took us to the ferry. And it was rather eerie. As we were going across is when the first tower came down. So as we were, prior to us going, as we started leaving the Staten Island ferry area, there was clergy on the ferry, and he was giving, general absolution to everyone, saying, if, God forbid you didn't come back, you were, he was, praying to God that you had a clean slate. So it was a little eerie, I got to say, you know what I mean? At that time, I'd say I had about 13 years on a fire department, and the first time in my life that, ever would at an emergency scene or responding to an emergency scene that you're given general absolution, you know what I mean? So you could just, there was a lot of quiet. There was a lot of guys, Staten Island's a big community of both police and fire. You could see, a lot of guys, you could see, concern on guys' face, not knowing, what we expected. So by the time we arrived on the Manhattan side, both towers had already came down. So there was command posts around that they were, a couple of the ranking staff chiefs and stuff were trying to establish, command posts to try and get, some kind of order and, a task on what to do. So I ran into guys from my old firehouse that were assigned to one of the buildings to try and extinguish the fire. So, we went up to help, we were up, one of them, I believe it might've been the Deutsche Bank, we were up there, and then water pressure problems were definitely because the infrastructure, when the buildings came down, damaged all the, water and stuff. So the water pressure problem, there was a lot of water pressure problems where, we didn't have a continual stream of water. I think later on in that day, the Marine unit had come in, and then they set up to draft water from, from the harbor. This way they could supply the hose lines. So, I mean, that day we ran into a lot of different, members who were looking either for their loved ones. There's a lot of legacies on this job, a lot of sons. Fathers were looking sons were looking for fathers, brothers looking for brothers. We tried to do whatever we could do, you know what I mean? Early on, there were people found, both alive and deceased. We rendered what assistance we could, to anybody. It was, as almost every fire it's controlled chaos, you know what I mean? So, we just tried to you relied on your training and, teamwork to try and help whoever we could help, you know what I mean? I remember, there was a lot of rumors in the beginning about missing members, like people saying, I seen Joe, but I hadn't seen Joe. So, that there was a lot of, initial, not miscommunication, but I remember a guy telling a guy, say, listen, I seen Joe, about an hour, and I just grabbed the guy and I'm like, listen, it's not really any of my business, but I just saying, you want to be 100% sure that you've seen Joe. You know what I mean? Like, you don't want to give anybody some false hope that, that they made it up. But initially, they had a missing member list, and it was a lot greater than the amount of guys that ultimately, just because, guys were with somebody and then, in the mayhem got separated and, radio transmissions, being what it may be, they weren't necessarily being able to, contact them once they kind of lost sight of each other. But, so basically we stayed there. I had gotten promoted out of a company in Brooklyn and wind up with those guys pretty much, searching. And, we found some people that were in areas that, that they were deceased. They would have to be extricated. We tried to get some marking paint of something to make some kind of, mark or, location so that, when we did leave, somebody would be able to, to help find, make it a little easier for them to find. So, it was, it seems like it was forever ago. And at the same time, it seems like yesterday, when I was telling you about, we got sent to the academy as new instructors. So we actually relieved a group of instructors that, their year was up and we were the new guys coming in to relieve them. And we relieved them the January before September 11th. And some of those guys ultimately wound up dying on September 11th. So ultimately, the 15 guys in my class that got sent to the academy ultimately had to save, some of our lives, because a lot of us were Staten Island or Brooklyn guys, and probably more than likely would have been assigned to the areas that, first responded to, to the World Trade Center.
What was going through your head during all of this? What were you thinking, or were you just on automatic?
You're on autopilot. You're not, you're thinking, just knowing what happened before we knew any kind of numbers. Anybody who knows that, when you have a high-rise building, they are automatically, and you have a decent amount of fire, they're automatically transmitting multiple alarms. So just from, past experience, you're saying to yourself, there's got to be a lot of guys in there, you know what I mean? Guys, girls, you know what I mean? In that building, meaning from, first responders, whether it's, fire, police, and, obviously when the towers came down, you knew in the back of your, in your heart that we definitely lost a lot of guys. Had no idea, the number. And as we knew as days unfolded and, a lot of members were never recovered. The number in infamy, came to be 343. So.
And what about your family? Because this was, as you pointed out, the early days of cell phones. And of course, all the cell phones went out anyway. You couldn't call. So how were you in touch with your family? How did you handle that? Because they had to have been fearing for your life.
My wife was not happy. I have two other brothers at the time. They were also FDNY members. That kind of we all wound up there, but separately. We didn't, go on our own. We all wound up, and actually, by chance, I ran into my brother while we were up there, and not, it just was really by chance. But my wife was quite upset. She kept calling, like you said, on the cell phone, but the cell phones weren't working. So my common thing I always tell her, no news is good news. You know what I mean? I grew up, I was one of 7 siblings, just like they talk about, we used to go out in the morning and we'd be out all day long, and had to be home by the street, when the street lights were on. We basically fended for ourselves. We ate at a friend's house, or a friend, we had 5 or 6 friends come to our house. Everybody gets a peanut butter and jelly, a glass of milk, and we move on. So coming from a big family, we kind of were all, that's kind of the way it was. So obviously my wife had some concerns, and then, multiple trying to call, because later on they had some of the smaller World Trade Center buildings, collapse later on in the evening. So, there was some concerns, for everybody that was there.
So at what point did she know you were okay?
I'm not even sure I think I might've been able to eventually, as we made our way back to the firehouse, we were able to use a landline and call home and basically tell her we're all right.
So many people tell me that, women tell me that their husbands were never the same after 9/11 because of the PTSD. How have you handled that, or has it been an issue for you?
It really hasn't been that I know of. I mean, I was a cop before I was a fireman. I mean, unfortunately, in the first responder world, you get to see a lot of gruesome sights. Some people have different ways of dealing with it. I don't know if, you could think about situations and something, and it could, get you, bring you emotional. But, like doing the funerals, I've been doing the funerals now since September 11th. So that was what we were tasked with, after. So we spent first couple, probably a month, down there in the recovery with everybody. And then they tasked some of us, the lieutenants that were assigned to the academy, to begin planning and arranging the funerals.
So you immediately, after a month, were assigned to the ceremonial unit. And for those who don't know about this unit, this is the unit that is there for the funerals. This is, that has become the job more so than being there for promotions. It's become a very morbid job and non-ending because of the number of FDNYers we have lost since September 11th. So what has that been like for you?
Well, to me, I consider it a great honor and a great privilege that I have the opportunity to sit down with a loved one, explain to them what the FDNY traditions are, and get what their thoughts are. You know what I mean? So to be able to do that, I don't think this is a great honor. I've had friends of mine that did the funerals with us during September 11th and say, how do you still do this? You know what I mean? Like, because again, we take great pride. I mean, our mantra for the FDNY is we tell our families we'll never forget. And we truly don't forget. You know what I mean? It's not like, it's something that's just said. It really does happen. And, like I said, to be a person entrusted by the commissioner, chief of department, to represent them, to sit down with the family, to get their wishes, explain our traditions, and, put it together. To me, there is no great honor.
There were so many days when there were multiple funerals in one day. What was the worst day? How many?
There was, I believe it was approximately 25 services in one day. Because what happened was, as time was going on, and this is the first time in the history of FDNY that we never had members that were recovered. So families got to the point like, I guess we got to do something. You know, we're a month out or 2 months out. In 2 months out, we have to do something. So, you know, we started conducting memorial services, and then so that day that there was, we basically broke down into like 2-man teams, and just, you know, we actually enlisted some volunteers, guys that I knew, you know, from my old firehouse. Say, listen, I need a hand. This is what I need you to do. You got to stand here. You know, one guy, I said, listen, you're going to be the family guy. He goes, what does that mean? I said, the wife's name is Shelli. When she pulls up in the car, you're going to introduce her. You're walking her in. This is where they're sitting. And, you know, so he's like, I said, listen, we have no choice. You know what I mean? We're doing this with 2-man teams. One guy basically doing the outside of the church, you know, lining everybody up, and the other guy, you know, helping, you know, coordinate everybody sitting down in the church and, you know, all that. So, you know, we did what we had to do. I mean, unfortunately, we've become probably the foremost expert on funerals. As you said, the post-September 11th funerals keep coming. And, you know, unfortunately, I think they'll come for a long time till, you know, those that are affected are no longer here.
Of the 343 FDNYers we lost that day, how many had no remains to bury?
Unfortunately, I shouldn't know that statistic, but off the top of my head, I do not know that. But I do know what happened is when we come through the academy, you know, they do like a blood drive and a bone marrow. So this way, if anybody's a match, you know, for either one of our members, or you go into a registry. So after September 11th, some of the families were contacted by, you know, the blood center saying that we have a vial of your blood, you know what I mean? That of your loved one's blood. So this way, that gave people the opportunity to bury, you know, something, you know what I mean? Whereas they didn't have any remains.
Let me ask you, Joe, how's your health?
My health so far so good. You know, we go for a medical, you know, under the World Trade Center program. We go, you know, get checked out once a year, and you know, it's helped a lot of members. It's saved, you know what I mean, guys that, you know, things got picked up just from the ordinary checkup, and things got followed up with. But so far so good.
How would you say that day changed your life?
Well, we lost a lot of friends. I mean, I didn't lose anybody in my immediate circle, but a lot of guys, you know, coming from Staten Island. I was born in the Bronx, moved to Staten Island when I was like 4 years old. So guys that we knew. My father was a firefighter, so if you didn't know people through my father, through my 2 brothers, you know what I mean? So it's hard to say how to put an exact word on how it would affect you, but, you know, again, the saying never forget, you know, we lived it, you know what I mean? The people that were there, people, you know, that lost their loved ones. I mean, it's not just a saying, it's something that, you know, we truly mean it. You know, I really can't put an exact word on, you know, saying how has it changed me, but, you know, it's just, you know, again, I'm honored to be able to help people go forward, you know, with either their memorial services, their funeral services. To me, you know, with my police time, and I was correction before, I have 38 years. I could have been retired, you know, quite a while ago, but, you know, I, you know, truly take, you know, honor, and, you know, I think it's truly special to be able to help these people, because I believe that all the little details that you do, because sometimes, you know, I'll hear from somebody like, you know, why are you doing this? Because all those little details, when everything is over, all those little attention to the details from everything that we do, and all our partners, whether we have law enforcement, you know, PD, NYPD, or, you know, New York State Troopers, New Jersey, assisting us with transport, you know, doing escorts and stuff. All those little details, I think, help that family begin their healing process. Like afterwards, they start thinking about like, wow, you know, like we had Christopher Slutman was, he was killed in action while serving as a reservist, and we had to come from Maryland up to New York. You know, so we're coordinating with three different states, law enforcement in 3 different states, as well as, you know, NYPD when his wake was in the Bronx, but it was seamless. These guys were, you know, 100% dedicated, you know what I mean? Went above and beyond, you know, and they were right there with every little detail. Probably one of the most touching parts of that when we had the procession, when we were coming up from Delaware, was I seen a little boy and his father. You know, they were, you know, in civilian, they were pulled over in their pickup truck and they stood in the back, and the little boy was holding a flag and they both had their hand over their heart. You know what I mean? So just an ordinary citizen that, you know, took the time. You know, dad might have been either an off-duty police, fire, or, you know, military member. But that was just like, you know, you get the chills when you see something like that.
Is there anything else you want to add?
No, I just, like I said, you know, our promise to the families is, you know, we're never going to forget. We're going to, you know, be there for them, you know, forever. And I thank you, because I know you help get the word out, you know, and you have a lot of our wives have become good friends of you, you know, with you. And we greatly appreciate, you know, it's not just, you know, the first responders, without ordinary people and our friends to help, you know, continue and carry the word out, stuff doesn't get done. So we greatly appreciate it.
Well, thank you.